Hey everyone, Pastor George here, and today I thought for our Theolog I would respond to this video that I came across, and it comes from TikTok. And this is something that's being presented as, a more literal and more direct translation of the Lord's Prayer. And as you listen to it, you're going to notice that this sounds nothing like the Lord's Prayer as we know it. And so I want you guys to listen to this, and I'll stop it, and I'll talk a little bit like why this is the way that it is and kind of the problem that this can lead to. So yeah, go ahead and we'll take a listen to it together, and I guess I'll comment on it as we go through it, or kind of at the end.
Hey there, do you want to hear a version of the Lord's Prayer that is translated from Aramaic to English rather than the traditional and typical one, which is translated from Aramaic to Greek to Latin and then to English? Okay, let's...
All right. So just first of all, just a really important clarification thing here is Aramaic. For those of you who don't know, Aramaic is the language that Jesus spoke, and that was the lingua franca of the Near East at the time that Jesus was around, outside of Greek, right? So like the Greek would have been a language that was used for trade, that was especially with foreigners and like with communications to the wider world. It was also the language of learning and education, right? Latin really didn't have that prestige, and never really would in the Eastern Mediterranean. So Greek was that language, but Aramaic was the spoken lingua franca of the people, and it ended up becoming the main language of the Jewish people and a lot of other groups that lived in that region of the world. Originally, it was actually a smaller language that was spoken as just like the language of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, which was then absorbed by the Persians, who used it as one of their languages that they would communicate with. And so the Jews, when they were taken to Babylon, right, adopted Aramaic as their language. By the time of Jesus, Hebrew isn't used in everyday speech. It's actually a liturgical language. It's dead. It's not being spoken outside of listening in the synagogue and teaching and reading the Hebrew Bible, right? So it's not really used. So Aramaic is the language that Jesus probably would have spoken in to all of his followers, even though he could speak other languages as well, being divine and things like that. But so he's speaking Aramaic to a lot of the people, and so obviously saying, well, hey, this is the Aramaic that Jesus was speaking, and this is its direct translation into English. And he does this kind of clever, or not so clever, if you know what's actually going on, right? He does this thing where it's like, he says, oh, well, instead of, Aramaic to English, we have an Aramaic to Greek to Latin to English, right? Translation. And that's not how we translate. That would have been, maybe they would have a better case for that. Maybe, back in the day, like by back in the day, I mean in the 14 and 1500s, where the Latin text, the Vulgate, was the center of it, right? Which is a Latin translation of the Greek. And of course, the Greek New Testament is originally that's its original language. It's not taken from something else. But of course, Jesus' disciples and the people who heard him are translating what he said in Aramaic into Greek for other people to hear, right? But that's assuming that they're very bad at translating, right? That it wouldn't be a very helpful thing. And the fact of the matter is that the Aramaic versions of the Lord's Prayer that we have are actually translations of the Greek into new Aramaic dialects which are spoken. So Aramaic is still spoken today, specifically within the Assyrian church and Assyrians, but their version of Aramaic is not the same as that Jesus spoke. So it's interesting here. So anyway, you'll see that this sounds very different and not at all like any Lord's Prayer besides the one that I commented on the channel a few months ago. So let's listen to what he says this direct translation of the Lord's Prayer sounds like in English.
Let's do it. O cosmic birther of all radiance and vibration, soften the ground of our being and carve out a space within us where your presence can abide. Fill us with your creativity so that we may be empowered to bear the fruit of your mission. Let each of our actions bear fruit in accordance with our desire. Endow us with the wisdom to produce and share what each being needs to grow and flourish. Untie the tangled threads of destiny that bind us as we release others from the entanglement of past mistakes. Do not let us be seduced by that which would divert us from our true purpose, but illuminate the opportunities of our present moment. For you are the ground and the fruitful vision, the birth, power, and fulfillment, as all is gathered and made whole once again. And so it is. There you go.
And so it is, right? And that's what he says it is. And in case you want to hear that, I guess, more clearly, because the audio might be a little weird, it says, "O come, birth of all, O cosmic birth of, wait, what? Of revolt radiance." Whoever translated this didn't do of maybe of all radiance or something, and vibration. Soften the ground of our being and carve out a space with us where your presence can abide. Fill us with your creativity so that we may be empowered to bear the fruit of your mission. Let each of our actions bear fruit in accordance with our desire. Follow us, endow us with the wisdom to procure and share what each being needs to grow and flourish. Untie the tangled threads of destiny that bind us as we release others from the entanglement of past mistakes. So instead of saying forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors, it's like release us from entanglements, right? Do not let us be seduced by that which would be which would divert us from our true purpose, but illuminate the opportunities of our present moment. So instead of like forgive us our sins as we forgive our debtors and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, it has this thing about illumination and things like that. For you are the ground and the fruitful vision, the birth, the power, and fulfillment of all that is and has been made whole once again. And so it is, right? So it's really bizarre. It's not at all what the actual Greek text of the New Testament says, or even the Aramaic texts, just to let you know. So the interesting thing about this, I ended up having to do a really big deep dive, and I found this great little blog post by this guy who went deep into this one. And they're all kind of were really spurious, like mid 1900s or mid 1800s translations that usually come with a lot of this idea of like mysticism, or they're done outside of the Christian tradition and not by scholars, right? So they end up becoming like really popular in like new religious movements and things like that. And you can see that, right? You can actually see in the language it uses, it's very modern, and actually I would say very Buddhist as well, like with this idea of illumination, right? People are picking up on these things from outside of the Christian tradition and inserting it in. And in that, he also has a actual translation of the Aramaic, and you'd be surprised, but it's just exactly what we have in the Bible, right? And people are able to do this, right? People, this guy is probably just like some guy who's really into New Age or spiritual things and like found this online and was like, hey, I'm going to share this or whatever. But the average person, and probably him included, has no way of actually knowing or understanding how to test whether or not this information is true, right? A lot of people just go, wow, it sounds really nice, and they don't really pay attention to what it has to say, or whether or not it's actually a reliable translation of either the Aramaic or the Greek New Testament, right? It ends up being not, and it's cloaked in this idea that, hey, this is a more direct translation, right? This is the type of knowledge that you don't normally hear about, and that's what really drives a lot of people into stuff like this. Is this we use this word Gnostic, right? This idea of knowledge, wanting secret knowledge and going after it, and that's what drives them to go, oh, hey, I want to be part of the in crowd. I want to make sure that I get this this special knowledge, and this will make me look very intelligent and things like that, right? And that's not at all really the point of it. And I think that they end up taking the words and just stretching them out to make them sound even more mystical or more significant than they are, right? So instead of saying our Father, which it's a buna, I think, in Aramaic. I'm not an Aramaic scholar, so I'm not going to be standing here saying that that's what it is, but I think it's like it's related very closely to the Hebrew word for father, right? It's clear that it's a father and it's a masculine word, and of course they make that stretch and make it sound like it's more mystical, right? Like, oh, maybe Christianity or other religions hide this because they want it to sound more patriarchal and masculine or something like that, right? But it's no, that's not what was going on, and so it's just you have to be very careful, right? This is why people when you're online, you need to always double check whether it's with me or with other Christian sources, and I can happily point you guys to those if you ever need them, about whether or not you can find out if these things are true, and that way you can know if what you're sharing or what you're thinking is really cool is actually grounded in something, or it's just the ravings of some madman, right? So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday, and I will see you tomorrow for our Bible study recap. Peace out.